So I'm standing here with Nils Brünner, CEO of Scandion Oncology. Nils, can you briefly tell us about Scandion and your lead candidate?
Yeah, so Scandion Oncology is focusing on drug resistance in cancer. And this might be new to many people, that cancer cells can develop resistance against the drugs we are using to treat their cancer. We know it from antibiotics, but unfortunately this is also the case in cancer, and that can be rather fast, within months. Can the cancer cells develop resistance? They start growing again, and eventually they will kill the patient.
If we look at your lead candidate, can you tell us about the drug?
Yeah, so our lead candidate is named SCO-101, and we got it from Saniona when we were spun out from Saniona. And we tested a lot of drugs from Saniona. They had about 130,000 different chemical compounds and drugs in their repository. And we tested some of them. And this one, SCO-101, turned out to block important resistant mechanisms, which means when you block this mechanism, the cancer cells will be sensitive again against the treatment. And what was very nice about this drug was that it had already passed what is called clinical phase 1, proved to be a safe drug with very limited toxicity. And I believe that the former owner of this drug had spent about 100 million Danish kroner to the development for a non-cancer disease. But for different reasons they stopped this development, and it was just on the shelf.
What indications do you target with your drug? Is there a potential to use the indication in even more, or the drug in even more indications?
Yeah. So the way we are working and with our drugs is that we are targeting the drugs and not the cancer disease, actually. So, for example, SCO-101 works together with very common chemotherapeutic drugs like taxanes, like irinotecan, like 5-fluorouracil, and also anti-estrogens, what we know now. But so it's not specific for a certain cancer type, it's specific for these cancer types that receive these drugs. And I can mention, for example, taxanes are being used in at least 10 different cancer forms. So that is ovarian cancer, lung cancer, pancreatic cancer, breast cancer, and so forth. So the very big cancer types, but they need to receive these specific drugs. So I think we can extend to a lot of different cancer types. Then we announced that we had identified a new candidate, SCO-301, and 301 is of specific interest because it's not taxanes or the other drugs. It's a totally different anti-cancer drug that is also being used in a lot of cancer diseases. So I think from covering about 40% of chemotherapy, we are now covering 60% because we could add this on.
And you're now raising capital. Can you tell us about the strategy here going forward?
Yeah, so we had at our IPO in the memorandum, we had announced that we would raise additional 13 million Swedish krona here in 19. But everything has gone so well. We have produced a drug, we have the management in place, we have the agreements with the clinics, and then we decided that we wanted to have an extended strategy, and that means that we want to include one more phase 2 study. And in this case, it's going to be a breast cancer study with taxanes. And I know from Big Pharma that they feel it's much more interesting to discuss with us if we have 2 different studies where we can prove that it works. So this is a way to increase the value of Scandion Oncology by having an additional study. And then we're actually planning a 3rd study with anti-estrogens in breast cancer. Unfortunately, when you treat metastatic breast cancer with anti-estrogens, estrogens are the female hormone, and you block it because estrogens stimulate breast cancer cells. When these women are treated, 100% develop resistance, and now we can block this resistance with SCO-101 also. But this is not part of the capital raise now. We expect to raise soft money for that 3rd study.
Let's say you get your approval, and how are you planning to take in the drug to the market? Out license, partnering, or?
Yeah, The strategy is to find a partner or out-license. And personally, I would like to have a partner because I like to have my hands in still instead of just waving goodbye and it's leaving. So a partner would be fantastic, and actually to have a partner in rather early so we can discuss the clinical setting and so on. So it's hard to come afterwards and say, you should have done this and this. So this would be very nice. Otherwise, it could be an out-licensing to a company that could sell it. But Scandion Oncology would like to get the income and then use that for the next drugs.
Looking at this from a time perspective, what milestones do you expect to achieve in the near future?
Yeah, I think the most important milestone for 2019 is when we treat the first patient end of this year. That's going to be a very important day for us. But we have a couple of other milestones in 2019, for example, when we receive the tablets, final production and so on, and some other things. But then we go into 2020, and already in end of Q2 2020, we'll be able to do the first analysis because our study is divided into 2 parts, and the first part will be done a half year in 2020, and we can report the data. And then we start the second study at the same time, the study in breast cancer, and we can report on that. Then at the end of 2020, we finalize the colorectal cancer study, the first study, and we can present all the data. And at the same time, we have the half year data from the breast cancer study. And then half a year into 21, we have the final breast cancer data. So there'll be a nice flow of data.
Looking forward to follow you, Nils. Thank you.
Thank you.